with quite a few nice houses alongside, leading to Amsterdam as it is today, with all these canals in the city center. You can use these canals for all sorts of purposes. One of the purposes you can see here. This is about a year ago when we welcomed back the Dutch national soccer team from South Africa. So even if you are not winning a tournament, Dutch would like to party. Not only Spain is a party country, the Netherlands is a party country as well. And here you see what happened then during these events on canals. And I would like to bring your attention to this graph. And I hope when you remember me that you remember this graph. And the question is, why should you remember this graph, this photograph? And the reason is simple. Have a look on these cars parked alongside the canal. In the past, these cars, some of these cars hit the canal. So they were trying to park their car alongside the canal, but then they hit the canal, not stopping on time. And what they did to build these very small guardrail to prevent that. And if you think about it, then there's not a good idea to build only a guardrail where a car hit the canal. That's very stupid of doing that. So what they did, as a matter of fact, they built these small guardrails alongside all canals in the city center of Amsterdam. And after that, nobody hit the canal anymore when parking. And think about that when you think about road safety. I come back to this example later on. You have seen many of these graphs in the past. This is the graph of my country. Two things are of relevance here. First of all, that we hit a line of 3,300 people killed in the country in the beginning of the 70s. And now we are down to a level of 640. That means that we have an 80% reduction in the period of about 30 years. And we make progress step by step, year after year. Don't expect to win this game in 1 year only. Invest in the quality of the system, and then step by step you will improve your situation. You have seen this before. Progress. And I said that half an hour ago. I'm not going to repeat that for you. Here you can see countries can make progress. The World Bank issued a report a couple of years ago indicating what's going to happen in the world when you make a separation of the several areas in the world. And here you can see that high motorized countries are moving well in the right direction. But you can see also that quite a part of the world will move in the wrong direction. And that's the reason why they predict an increase of the number of fatalities from 1.2 million a year about now up to 2 million in 10 years' time. And that's the alarming figure we have to fight. And that's the reason why the United Nations declared this decade of action, to fight this future and not make it going to happen. And here you see as well that your part of the world is also moving in the wrong direction if these predictions are becoming reality. And that's the reason why countries, populations, governments have to act. So what I'm going to do now, in half an hour, 20 minutes, whatever, is describing and explaining progress, implementing effective measures, interventions, describe our way of approaching this safe system approach, and how to create conditions for effective road safety policies. And I'm telling you this story not because I do know how your programs or policies should look like. The only thing I would like to do here today is to inspire you with some ideas, and hopefully you are inspired by that. And by doing so, I hope to speed up development in this country. At the end of the day, you have to do it yourself. It's not me who is going to improve road safety in this country, it's you who is going to do that. And hopefully you can be inspired by some of the thoughts from abroad. Anna was talking about indicators, you were talking about indicators, and we developed a model a couple of years ago about the relationship of indicators. Most of all, we are interested in the numbers of people killed and injured in road crashes. And we are interested in that because we would like to reduce numbers, and by doing that we try to reduce the burden on society. It can be economical burden, as your Vice Minister said, 1.5% of your GDP, but also you would like to reduce the social costs when it comes to families and communities. So this is what our interest is. Next thing we do is implement measures and programs. And by doing that, we hope to influence the number of people killed and injured. We learned over the years that it's not so easy to establish a relationship between your measures and programs and the number of people killed and injured. It's not so easy. And that's the reason why we introduced this intermediate level performance indicators, we call them. And we can measure them. So what we have seen by Anna again, so she measured seatbelt wearing, she measured drinking and driving, she measured speed behavior. That at a level of intermediate variables. To understand measures and programs, you have to dig in the safety, dig in the structure and the culture of a country. So in one country, certain measure is fully acceptable. In another country, it's problematic. One of the famous examples are helmets for cyclists in my country. The culture in my country almost forbid it. You need to be a king of the Netherlands to make a degree to get it happen. We don't have a king of the Netherlands. That's not going to happen. It's a part of the culture. And of course, you try to change that. But don't do that. And you have other cultural elements. The same is the structure. How is the country organized? So you can understand road safety plans if you understand the background of a country, and that's why we have this basic level. What we try to do in road safety policies is to go through this arrows, through these different layers of this so-called pyramid. And we try to do that with a causal relationship. So not just measuring and then saying this is the reality. We try to understand why a change at a certain level will result in changes. And the problem for us as researchers is all the time that the world is changing all the time. It's not waiting for our experiments or our research, and so that we have to establish our research
que está en constante cambio, y esto básicamente es lo que tratamos de hacer. Y si se habla de un observatorio, se trata de entender por qué hay progreso.
Try to be honest with yourself about your external factors, not claiming all the good progress by your measures. Try to be honest with you and try to understand how that's going to happen. I give you this example from my own country. This is moving averages. I hope you're familiar. Every month you add a month to these figures, and then you have a development like that. Just as a sudden we had a drop of 20% in a certain period of time, and try to explain that. All these smart people in my institute were not able to explain more than 1/3 of that. And that means that only these interventions which change over time could explain them. But we are still interested to learn the other 2/3. And if you see policy documents, they explain everything with their activities. And I never trust that because there's so much unexplained in our reality that it's not so easy to understand that. But this is basically what we try to do. And hopefully you are going in this direction as well. And what you said this morning, basically you are interested in this. You try to understand why you're making progress and what you learn and what you from your interventions. As said before, don't pay only attention to fatalities. Injuries are telling a different story. Injuries are important. especially if you approach this from an economical perspective. In my country, injuries are covering about 50% of all economical costs of road crashes. And fatalities and injuries are different type of crashes. And that's the reason why I would say we have to pay more attention to injury crashes also in our analysis to understand what's going on out there on the roads. And hopefully we are going to work with that in the future. We have some problems to solve, but the European Union decided to include injuries in their target setting in the future. And we are working on that now to support them in doing that. And the report I announced half an hour ago hopefully will help them as well. So not only fatalities, also injuries. But again, you have to be prepared that you have so-called under-reporting. Not all crashes are known to the authorities, so you have to take that in consideration. Our traditional approach, and that's what they've done in Spain, that's what they have done in my country as well. You go to the statistics, you try to analyze them, and then what you are going to do, you are looking for high numbers, and that's a priority. You are looking for high shares, that's a priority. You try to identify high rates or high risks, certain age groups or transport modes or whatever. You try to understand risk differences, and this is the famous formula coming from Sweden, where you disentangle all the different factors, exposure, crash risk and injury risk. You try to understand what's going on with your performance indicators. And the next step then is to fight high risks because you think that you can be effective on that. Furthermore, you pay attention to negative development. You see an increase of the people killed in motorcycle crashes.
El número de gente muerto así de manera de reacción, siguiendo las cifras que provienen de los datos de la policía en sus informes. Así que esto es, digamos, el enfoque tradicional. Se tienen accidentes, se analizan y luego se tratan de entender por qué ocurren. Y basado en eso uno toma los siguientes pasos. Pero en el mundo de la seguridad vial ahora estamos encaminados en un sentido más moderno, por decirlo así. Estas son las respuestas tradicionales, como les venía diciendo. Ya lo han visto hoy, esto ya no es nuevo para ustedes. Ojalá reconozcan todos los términos y ya los han incluido en sus actividades y ojalá tengan esos 5 pilares de las Naciones Unidas. Pero yo les decía que vamos ya a una siguiente fase. Y lo que hicimos fue usar el término de fruta bajita. Fruta que cuelga baja es un término que utilizamos. Lo hemos utilizado en el pasado y lo hemos utilizado de manera muy efectiva. Son las victorias fáciles, digamos, pero ya entendemos que la seguridad vial no es solamente este enfoque. Imagínense que ustedes están en esa vía que se ve en la foto de mano izquierda. Asuman o supongan que ese vehículo, ese camión viene a 50 centímetros de su vehículo. Eso va a salir bien en la mayoría de los casos, pero puede salir mal este caso. Y si sale mal, este accidente lo va a matar. Así que tenemos un sistema.
The same is true when you have trees alongside your road. You never have a tree alongside the runway of an airfield. You don't do that, but alongside roads you have them. Assume you are this bicyclist. You have priority over the moving car making the turn to the right. But if the car driver is not observing you well, then the car is hitting you as a cyclist. And then you're lost. So we call that inherent risk in our transport system. And we know these risks. We don't need additional data anymore to understand that we have these risks. And I give always one example of explaining my point here. I live in a residential street. There's no need to prove that 50 kilometers per hour in my street is more dangerous than 30 kilometers per hour. Don't wait for a crash and say you have crashes in front of your house door and then take a measure to make that 50 kilometers, 30 kilometers. So we have the knowledge. So why wait for crashes before taking action? And that's basically we are moving in the national arena towards to. And this is the fundamental problem we have. We call that inherently unsafe. It's not designed with safety in mind, as you have done with air traffic or rail traffic. We are almost fully dependent on how good the road user is performing his tasks. And that's risky, because human beings are making errors and mistakes. So we have a system that we almost fully dependent on how good the road users are doing their task. And that's the reason that we move into this direction of so-called safe system approach. Don't wait for crashes, accept that the human being makes errors and mistakes, and try to design and implement an environment where you don't have the negative consequences of that. And I've said this before. This is another way of describing that. This morning your 5 minutes talked about 90% human failure. And that's correct. That's correct. And that's correct. And that's symbolized by this big circle here. And only minor circles are road-related and
círculos más pequeños son relacionados con la vía o con el vehículo. A veces la gente comete el error en el entendimiento de este paradigma. Y en mi opinión sería mucho mejor enfocarlo así. Es el ser humano dentro de su ambiente que crea el problema. No es el ser humano como tal. Es decir, si uno quiere combatir contra los errores, uno puede cambiar el ambiente para poder reducir la probabilidad de un error. Y por eso hay un malentendido con este concepto, diciendo que es el 90% error humano. Y mandamos educación, mandamos trabajo policial y campañas para tratar de cambiar el ambiente para que el humano no pueda cometer errores. Y ese es el modo de pensar, esto es del Reino Unido, este es el modo de pensar en el cual yo creo. Este también es del Reino Unido, se ve muy complicado y de cierta manera sí lo es. A veces esto lo llaman a veces el modelo de queso suizo. Entonces busquen en la documentación, busquen en internet, busquen el modelo de queso suizo. Porque aquí lo principal es que el sistema vial pues, se describe en esos varias pantallas y se ve que las pantallas tienen sus agujeros o huecos. Esos huecos son errores y como se tienen esos errores, algo puede ocurrir. Y debemos manejar la interacción o la superposición de esos huecos. Porque únicamente si hay un hueco a lo largo de todas las pantallas ocurrirá un accidente. Y la gran pregunta para nosotros es cerrar los huecos en el diseño del sistema y entender que el ser humano comete errores, y al hacerlo aún tenemos el problema con el comportamiento humano, pero sin embargo no va a resultar un accidente porque el sistema está diseñado de tal manera que el accidente no puede ocurrir. Y esto es otro enfoque en cuanto a la seguridad vial, en vez de culpar al conductor o culpar a la víctima por haber tenido el accidente.
In a few lines, you can read it like this.
Unos renglones se puede resumir
Adjust
así,
the environment of the human,
que solamente por el ambiente
to the human measure in such a way
para la medida humana
the human being,
se debe ajustar para que el ser humano cometa menos errores y por lo tanto tenga un riesgo reducido por medio de eliminar las condiciones que son peligrosas. 2, diseñar un ambiente en el cual el humano comete menos errores. Y 3, si cometen errores, tratar de que los errores perdonen. Hay una parte eso es una parte de la ecuación. La otra parte es diferente y eso es la parte de las violaciones o infracciones, porque aún hay gente que viola la ley, rompe la ley y tenemos que manejar ese problema también. Pero por un lado se tienen eso, el error humano, y por el otro lado se tienen las infracciones, y ambos son importantes. No se puede decir que solamente es el único. No se puede decir que solamente es el segundo renglón. Ojalá hayan entrado pensando en este segundo punto. Ojalá se vayan de este salón con los dos puntos en mente. Hay 2 puntos relevantes cuando se habla de la seguridad vial. El segundo es importante, pero el primero también es muy importante.
And that's basically what you see in this
Y eso es básicamente lo que se ve en este informe de la OSD. Ya se los presenté anteriormente. No voy a repetirlo. Y nuevamente les recomiendo mirarlo. Hay otra noción importante. No aislar a la seguridad de todos estos otros elementos del sistema. Hay que integrarlos en la toma de decisiones. Y yo sí creo que si se integran, ciertamente jugarán un papel importante. Hay que definir estos elementos dentro de la toma de decisiones, considerándolos todos como importantes y no aislarlas. El viceministro habló de equidad, de salud, no tanto de competitividad, pero todo esto forma parte de lo seguro e incorporar la seguridad en el momento de tomar decisiones. Se escribió un libro sobre esto que se puede bajar gratis. Manejar este enfoque. Se necesitaron 200 páginas para escribir lo que yo les trato de decir ahora en media hora. Vimos que nuestra forma pueden ver nuestra forma de pensar en estos informes y esos libros, pero también si se acercan a las Naciones Unidas y la OSD verán cómo pensamos plasmado en estos informes. Implementamos esto también, ya les hablaba de la implementación, esto lo hicimos de hecho, así que utilizamos esta visión para ser implementada en Países Bajos. Y estos son los resultados.
5% fatality reduction a
Una reducción del 5% de fatalidades por año en un periodo de 10 años. Y fue 2 veces mayor que en los años anteriores, más que todo en infraestructura y en trabajo policial, así que hubo inversiones en el trabajo policial. Yo vengo de un pasado científico y por eso es que tenemos un gran grado de probabilidad anunciado para estos resultados. Invertimos mucho. Estos son términos de euros. Yo puedo explicarles de dónde provino el dinero, pero casi que nada de estos fondos, ninguno de estos fondos era para seguridad vial. Y hubo beneficios para la sociedad 4 veces mayor en cuanto a ingresos que el mismo costo. Así que no solamente es una visión, sino que se implementó esta visión. Y aquí tenemos los resultados de esos 10 años. Las características principales, y luego detendré. Es un componente ético. No queremos entregarle el sistema de tránsito a la siguiente generación con los niveles actuales de fatalidades, sino que es un enfoque proactivo, es integral, considerando todos los componentes del sistema. La gente es la medida para todo, errores latentes, y el último renglón es el criterio sobre economía. Ya les mostré este anteriormente. Políticas efectivas, allí se necesitan los diferentes componentes. No se puede tener simplemente la implementación, hay que invertir en todos los otros elementos también, o si no, creo yo, no van a tener éxito. Construir un sistema más seguro paso a paso, y por favor recuerden estos rielecitos como símbolo de esto. Piensen en el problema, piensen cómo evitar el problema y ataquen el problema en su raíz. No vamos a parar en los canales, no vamos a parar, no vamos a dejar de marcar